bad and who's good, Little Red Riding Hood? Once upon a time, there was a girl called Little Red Riding Hood. It wasn't her real name. It's just what everybody called her, because she was little and always wore a red cloak with a hood. One day, her mother asked her to take some cupcakes and soup to her grandma who lived in the woods. "Stick to the path and don't talk to strangers," said her mum. "And if you do meet a stranger, yell and run, dear, and tell." "Who should I tell?" said Little Red Riding Hood. "Someone you know, or a police officer, or a person in a shop," replied her mother. On the way to Grandma's house, Little Red Riding Hood heard someone coughing behind a tree. "It's a wolf," she thought. "Hello, what are you doing out here all by yourself?" said the wolf. "A stranger," said Little Red Riding Hood. "I'm going to Grandma's house, so leave me alone," she cried. She ran and she ran until she met a rabbit. "Oh, hello. What's wrong?" said the rabbit. "I'm on my way to Grandma's house with some cakes and soup, and I saw a big bad wolf, but I yelled and I ran away," said Little Red Riding Hood. "Oh dear, how awful," said the rabbit. "Why don't you come and pick some flowers with me so you can take them to your dear grandma, and I will come with you to keep you safe?" "No, thank you," said Little Red Riding Hood. "That would be lovely." While Little Red Riding Hood picked the flowers, she told the rabbit all about her grandma. "She's very old and she still lives by herself. Mum says it's not safe for her to be all alone, especially when she's got so much jewellery." "I can't wait to meet her," said the rabbit. Meanwhile, the wolf arrived, huffing and puffing at Grandma's cottage. Knock, knock, knock. He knocked on the door and then went inside. When Little Red Riding Hood arrived at the cottage, she found someone snuggled up in Grandma's bed wearing a nightgown and cap. "Oh, Grandma, what big eyes you have," said Little Red Riding Hood. "Well, they must work better than yours," replied the wolf. "I'm not your grandma." "It's the wolf!" shrieked Little Red Riding Hood. "He's eaten your grandma!" yelled the rabbit. "Oh no, Grandma!" wailed Little Red Riding Hood. "Yes, dear," replied Grandma, walking into the room carrying a tea tray. "What on earth is the matter?" "Oh, I thought the big bad wolf had eaten you," cried Little Red Riding Hood. "I didn't," croaked the wolf. "He was about to," cried the rabbit, moving towards the door. But just then, crash! A policeman burst in. "Thank goodness you're here! Arrest him!" cried Little Red Riding Hood. "I will," said the policeman as he grabbed the rabbit by the ears. someone please tell me what's going on?" cried Little Red Riding Hood. So Grandma told her. "Mr. Wolf is a friend of mine. He came to warn me that you were all alone in the woods and that you were talking to strangers. So we decided to call the police. Mr. Wolf looked poorly when he got here, so I made him put something warm on and get into my bed. Then I made him some tea." "That's why you're wearing Grandma's nightie and cap," said Little Red Riding Hood. "Yes," the wolf said. "I might look silly, but I'm lovely and warm." "Even though you yelled and ran away, you told me where you was going. But you also spoke to the rabbit. But you didn't know the rabbit either," said Mr. Wolf. "But he's really nice," replied Little Red Riding Hood. "Oh, no, he isn't," said the police officer. "This is the famous Bunny Burglar. We've been after him for ages." The police officer tipped Rabbit's bag upside down and out fell Little Red Riding Hood's grandma's jewellery, cupcakes and the flask of soap. And some things they'd never seen before. The policeman led the rabbit away. "I was so sure Rabbit was so good and Wolf was so bad," sighed Little Red Riding Hood. "You can't always tell who's bad and who's good. Mr. Wolf is lovely, and I've known him for ages. He's not a stranger to me," said Grandma. Red Riding Hood looked over at Mr. Wolf, who was sitting on the bed drinking tea, still wearing Grandma's nightie and cap. "Well, he might not be a stranger," giggled Little Red Riding Hood, "but he definitely looks strange." First told you the title of this story, Who's Bad and Who's Good? Little Red Riding Hood. Did you think you already knew the story already? Discuss with a friend why Little Red Riding Hood's mum said, "Don't talk to strangers." Write down what advice you might give somebody who's going for a walk on their own. What words of advice would you say? Little Red Riding Hood thought that the rabbit was good and the wolf was bad. Was she right? Can you tell who is good or who is bad just by looking at them? Come up with a sentence that describes who a stranger is. And your last task is draw the wolf wearing Grandma's nightgown and cap. Don't forget to include his sharp teeth and his big eyes. And you can make him as silly looking as you like.